Well, I'm just going to jump into part 4, which is going to be about death, destructive behaviour, which I sort of covered in the last part. Part 3 was me sort of finding the world of drink and drugs and growing up in my hometown, having the business, and yeah, so I'm going to keep reading from my journal to and fro. But so between 15 and 17 years old, so I had my business. I was partying. I think I've already covered that. And I suppose we've got to talk about my mum and dad really here at this point, because I was living with mummy and daddy, and I had my room, and I had my business, and I was coming to and fro. I was smoking pot, and I told my mum and dad I was smoking pot, and they were quite cool with that. And I think my dad was trying to bond with me a bit more. I don't know how much he thought of me being gay. He didn't know, as in I'd never told him. Mum told me later that he had an idea, but this is what I've written here about Dad. Dad, he worked night shifts at Doonray. He did a lot of night shifts, coming home at 6 a.m. and then going straight to bed, just managing to be sociable but never having friends around. I never recall my dad having mates coming round for, a beer or to sit and watch a film. My dad didn't do that. My dad went out to work. He provided for the family. My mum had so many jobs it was untrue. When my sisters moved out of the house and there was just me, mum was always doing something. She was a really talented person, my mum. But they had problems. They had, through my teenage years and then developing, when did they stop? Maybe they didn't really stop, but by 15, 16 years old, I knew that they had a gambling problem and that they'd spent a severe amount of money on the fruit machines. They used to go out to bingo at the social club and just spend hundreds. So it was, they knew they had a problem and they had to address it because the bank actually came in. And my dad had he was working at Doonray. He would have had a good salary at the time. My mum was always working, so they should have been well off. I was not asking them for bugger all. In their nice way, they were trying to get me to pay rent towards the house, which I'd occasionally give them money because I was earning. They're trying to, I suppose in their way, set me up for when I move out of house. You've got to pay rent, you've got to pay bills, and I understood that. But my father, he never had anyone around. My dad was liked in the town. He was a quiet man. He was quite. I think he suffered panic attacks. He used to. I got a car when I turned 17. Straight away, I bought a car. I bought my brother-in-law's car, and he learnt me to drive. But I was never really interested. But like, my dad would never go to the shop to buy anything. He would take me or get mum to get him it, and he wouldn't go in there. He used to go quite red and flushed and embarrassed, which I get. He passed a bit of that on to me. You probably wouldn't notice to meet him. Like me, he'd be engaging in conversation, but I don't think he didn't welcome friends round to the house and things like that. It was a bit unusual. He wasn't a weird guy or anything. He was just, I think, I wrote here, I believe he suffered panic attacks, kept out of crowds. Maybe he was just downright shy, the classic shy. I know he tried to connect with me. Mum and dad went crazy gambling. I've already said that. I think they were always looking for this life-changing win. They used to buy the fucking Sun newspaper and do the bingo daily. And it was just, to win a few thousand. But that's the malady with gambling, which I know very well now, very, very well. They'd go to the View first, they'd go to the club, and they'd lose all their money. Both my sisters had moved out. Mum and dad didn't sleep together. either. They both slept in separate rooms. We lived in a four bedrooms up, upstairs, downstairs. I had my room. Mum and Dad slept separate. She blamed his snoring, but I think my dad was. I know. Maybe I still don't know enough about my dad, and there'll be a reason for that because we'll find out soon. But if you're still listening, I think he was an oversexed man. I think he was quite a. I mean, my sisters hinted that he had an affair with the lady over the road, which is plausible. She would come over very, very drunk, and they would have a few drinks, and he would always take her home. And she was living with another guy at the time. But maybe he did have a little sexual fling with her, I don't know. I know they were unhappy. And between my 15 to 17 years old, he tried to connect with me. He tried to smoke pot with me. They would go out to the club and he would come back and ask if I could get him some pot. And I think this was just his way of trying to connect with me, you know. Yeah. Mum had gone through the menopause as well when I was a younger teenager, so she'd had a hysterectomy. So I think any sort of progression, father-son connection with him. But, you know, I was a teenager too. I was trying to figure my own shit out, you know. You don't know what you've got till it's gone and all that jazz. But I was a teenager going through this, you know, I'm gay, I'm doing this, I'm that. I've started a business and I'm going out and I've got my friends and I'm discovering this wonderful world out there. So I just looked at my dad as being my dad, and what I look back at now is with him trying to connect with me more. You know, I was never deliberately shunning. I was just too busy with my own shit, you know, going on in my head. Right here. I've written here, no wonder all teenagers today think they're mentally ill. I mean, going back to the puberty thing, the hormonal change, finding yourself, trying to fit in, exploring your sexuality, you know, it's a mental struggle. So my business was doing really well. I think I've said that. The mail order side was huge. We were doing a lot all over UK, buying and selling, swapping games. We had a lot of stock, a reasonable amount of stock. We were quite well liked in the business throughout the whole of Britain. We had a lot of regular customers, so we were good at that. I loved it. The kids in the shop, you know, great. It was making decent money. And then Dad just dies, you know, that's basically what happened. He put in for early retirement at Dunray and I was 17, and he just dies 3 days before he should have taken early retirement. He left to go to work for the day shift, so he left early morning, and I was woken up with a knock on the door about 7 a.m. and my first thought was it was the police come to raid my stash of cannabis. That was I woke up, police, the door, they're coming for me. And I only had a tiny amount. And then I opened the door and it was the police, and they said, can we speak to your mum? And I didn't click until I went upstairs, and then I heard my mum sort of screaming and sobbing. And they asked me to come down, and I knew then. And they said, well, your dad has died. And so Dad's dead, and boom, you know, it was a huge blow, tremendous. You know, he had a very sudden heart attack at work. It was very quick, we were told. We were told at the time. He was found by one of his workmates just in his office with his head, you know, down on the table, and so it must have been very quick. There was no pain, from what I know. So, you know, I've written here, it brought the family together quite a bit, really, it did. We went to see his body, and we were close, and yeah, it brought us together for a short period. So that was Dad, he'd gone. The funeral came and went, and Mum was grieving and she hated being in the house, which is understandable because of the memories of, you know, being with Dad. She got quite a large amount of cash, from what I recall, from Dunray because he died at work. You know, he didn't make his retirement, but there you go. He was 56. After a few months, I was trying to get Mum out and about, and I was trying to get her to meet men, and I was trying to set her up with dates, and I even got her with the teletext dating that I was doing to find men. I got her on that, you know, and she met a few nice men, probably men that I liked more than she did. But no, she didn't like that. She ended up meeting a guy called Henry, a local guy. He did karaoke in the bars, and Henry was fine, you know, and at the time, it's certainly not what I wanted for her, but she wanted Henry, and that was that. He was a bit of a toy boy too. He was in his early 40s, maybe at that time. And she fell head over heels for him, really. I don't think Henry wanted it, though. In fact, I know Henry did not want to be with Mum 24/7. He was a shy guy until he got drunk. Like a lot of people in our town, shy until they get a few drinks down them then. So Dad had come and gone. I was trying to set Mum up, and then I turned 18. But that was just... I turned 18, but it was just really when Dad had died, so it wasn't a big celebration for me at all. My close friends knew I was gay, and one night in a nightclub I told someone I shouldn't have told, who told everyone, and the next day everyone in town knew I was gay. And I went to this little rock festival we had in town, a small event, and people started coming up to me. One in particular, a chap called Ronald, and he said, "So is it true?" And I thought he was going to attack me or something, and I was like, okay, and I just thought, okay, well, I've come this far with it. Yeah, it's true. They were all, mainly, you know, everyone was shaking my head, saying, "Oh, it's good on you, it's fine with us, we don't give a shit." But we was getting the odd bum joke and "don't look at my cock" kind of thing, but it was fine. It was accepted, you know, by a majority of people. It surprised a lot of people because I'm quite straight acting. And then the problem came within 2 days. I had to tell Mum before someone else in town told Mum, so I got very drunk and told her, and her response was, "Are you sure?" And she started to cry, and that pissed me off, because it's like, yes, I'm fucking sure, because I had to get really drunk to tell you. I've told the whole town. I've lived with this for years. I'm so fucking sure. But, you know, I think she thought more about, oh, what will the other people think? Because my mum was like that. She was a very talented woman, but she was very selfish, which are genes that have been passed on to me, the selfish genes. Try not to be to the best of my ability, but you know, most importantly, my friends and the main gang of people I hung around with didn't give a shit. Thursdale's a small town, I've written here, full of open-minded people. Thursdale's like that. From one extreme there are narrow-minded souls who've never left the town, and on the other extreme you've got very deep thinkers, deep hearts, and open minds. So at that point, I'm going to have to leave this segment. I've come out. I'm going to stop this. I am going to stop this video. So I'm going to leave this at this point. My coming out, and the next stage will definitely be me me moving on and moving to Edinburgh. A very difficult but exciting part of my life. Okay.